Okay, I'm back, I guess, at least for today. Didn't stream it all this weekend because I had other things to occupy me, but, I have no idea what time it is at this point. Oh, it's 6:26 a.m. I've been awake since 4 because my body just decided it doesn't want me to sleep. It is much colder in this basement than I was giving any consideration to. So I guess I'm going to go back to painting custodies because I am right now fairly project free. At least for now. So let's get back to this, shall we? At some point, I'm going to go back and do some other work, some other little projects. But right now, I think I just want to do this. I have another head coming in for my my chapter master for the Imperial Fists. That hasn't arrived yet. It's in a Roanoke distribution center right now, which is making me incredibly impatient. So I'm a little antsy-pantsy for that, but until that gets here, I'm gonna go ahead and just continue working on my custodies, since they are supposed to be kind of my my project and I don't have anything else to do. So let's go ahead and get going. It's been a while since I've had to do, or since I've chosen to do, not had to do. This is all about choice, baby. Since I've done non-metallic metal, and so I guess we're gonna get to see me struggle through that. And I'm gonna see if I can fix the settings. Let's see, is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? Yeah, that looks like it'll be okay. Let's see. And looking back at them, I can definitely see what I was thinking of and what I was doing here. How rough that all looks. I mean, it still looks pretty good, all things considered. I'm not too mad at it. Whatever song this is, though, that one needs to go. Let's go ahead and remove that one. That one was a bit too much. Is that the one? Yeah, that one's a bit too active, a bit too busy. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that from the playlist. I should actually have a new playlist soon enough because I've decided that I don't really want to pay for Epidemic Studios anymore, as good as they are. And so I'm going to start using a friend's music who has offered to let me do so for stream. So that's probably going to be on the horizon soon enough. And you guys will get to hear Quirky Beat Boops by my friend Soft Servo. So it's been a little bit since I've done this. And so we're going to see if I remember, well, anything about how to properly do non-metallic metals. I'm going to use a slightly different color combination of pale sand, marron, dorado, gold brown, and game color charred brown to see if I can toy with the white a little bit more than I was. I'm also going to scream in agony because my hand is cramping. I did a lot of help for, actually of all people, Soft Servo, because he's moving into a new house, and so I've been working on trying to help him get ready, and that meant doing some painting and drywall work for him the other day, which was a great deal of fun because I haven't done that kind of work in a long time. But I haven't done that work in a long time, so that meant that a lot of my muscles aren't used to that anymore. So let's see, what do I need to do? What do I want to do here? I was working on the legs last time, it looks like. His upper body is, for all intents and purposes, done. So I suppose we're going to work on these legs here and hope that I can get some good color going on. I don't remember how. I was kind of hoping that once I learned how to do non-metallic metal, it'd be like riding a bike and I'd just be able to pick it back up. But I'm legitimately drawing blanks on how to go ahead and start this. So what I think I'm going to do is on the high spot, which would be this calf, raised calf. Go ahead and block in some of this more chocolatey brown. So I definitely went very dark with the brown to give it more of a almost a black look. And so I'm going to get to play with that a little bit, see how that cloud is going to work against the warmer brown tones I'm going to be using. But right now, I'm feeling a little bit like, I don't know what I'm doing. Completely forgot. It's all gone. Brain empty. Head empty. Nothing there. But we'll see. Let's see how this pans out. Brown. And it looks like previously I did a ton of layers to try and really simulate that color. I might have gone a little bit too overboard with that. Suppose we'll see though, right? We'll see how far I'm able to take this. And hopefully the autofocus, it's not going to be too bad. Some more of this mixture. I was trying to watch some more videos on how to do non-metallic metal, and something that I saw that I had never really thought about is how in a lot of spaces between light and dark that there isn't really a blend that needs to happen. A lot of the times it just kind of goes straight from a light area to a dark area because of the nature of how reflections work. So I probably don't need to worry so much about my blends. I can probably just sketch in the values and then go from there and see whether or not I like it. But of course none of that is going to stop my general anxiety. So I'm going to push and pull with it until I reach some level of satisfaction. And then we'll move from there. I will say, something that has been something of a revelation for me has definitely been the use of this liner brush, because having a longer, narrower brush to work with is a lot nicer for getting some of these finer details, and using what I had been using, which was, even though it is a very nice Winsor & Newton brush, I do feel like in some ways I was working against myself. So I'm definitely appreciating the move to something a little less restrictive. So don't be married to the quality of your brushes, guys, or the cost of your brushes. Use the tool that works for the situation that it calls for. So I know it's been a while since I've streamed in the morning, but to be completely honest, Doig and Swift have been streaming in the morning too, and watching them has kind of been more important for me than streaming, because I really like watching them. So the fact that their streams have started to spill over into what I would consider the block that I usually stream is why I haven't been here. But I think they're still unconscious from playing It Takes Two for, I think, like 12 hours yesterday, which was a great deal of fun. I have opinions about that game, and apparently so do a lot of other people. And so watching them kind of blind react to it was incredibly enjoyable. And that really hit, because I left for a while to do things, and when I got back and saw that they were still playing, I checked back in to be like, oh, I wonder how far they are. And I saw they were at a place much further than I got, because I watched the Game Grumps play it, and they kind of stopped after a specific scene. And not to spoil it too much, but it's mentioned in like reviews of just how horrific the game can be with its tone. But so Doig and Swift are just kind of running around, throwing snowballs at each other, having a grand old time. I think I went way too narrow with that. And then as they're doing this, Swift just kind of says, hey, remember when we tore that stuffed elephant's leg off? Which is an incredible mood killer, but also really, really funny, because the game does that. It goes from like incredibly fun and silly and innocent moments to incredibly horrific, nightmarish moments that are like, whoa, whoa, way too much. Way too much. And that leads to some weird, jarring tonal shifts in the game. So, that definitely happens. In a bid to try and get their daughter to cry because they believe her tears will bring them back, or return them to normal, they find her favorite stuffed animal who has no clue what's going on. It's just like, hey kids, how are you doing? I'm here to help you. I want to be your friend. And then they chase it down and decide that they need to mangle it so that they can throw it in front of her and make her cry, since she can't physically see them. So they have an extended sequence of them like dragging the stuffed animal towards like the edge of like a dresser, a tall shelving unit. And as they're doing so, they are ripping like its legs and its arms off. And the thing is very clearly in agony, even though it's just a sentient toy. And they've got this weird, twisted, like, I'm so innocent and happy music playing in the background as you're doing this. And then, of course, they throw the dang thing in front of the child. She starts weeping because it's missing a leg and an arm. And they're bathing in her tears, trying to revert back to normal. And I guess this is all meant to be played for laughs, but it's like, it's not funny. It's just kind of nightmarish. It reads like a sociopath wrote that scene. Okay. Yeah, see, because I don't think I'm using any orange in this, it's definitely not coming across as orange as the rest of it. So maybe I should go back and add some. I don't know. I'll see how this plays out. But I remember, I think the Game Grumps got there, and then either Dan or Aaron were probably just like, yeah, let's not play this anymore. This is not enjoyable. And if I had to take my guess, it would probably be Dan who protested, because he gets very emotionally invested in the games they play. And something like that would probably deeply upset him, like it upset me. So he probably decided, yeah, that's enough. We don't need to do this anymore. But yeah, they were definitely past that spot. And it was interesting to see that they were continuing to go, because once again, the game has some genuinely cute and innocent moments. That's just not one of them. So I am curious if they beat it. I've never seen the ending. I heard the end. Hey, Diggs. How's it going? I'm very tired. It's early in the morning for me. It's about 6 something, and I've been awake since around 4, so I'm just kind of rambling incoherently while I attempt to remember how to do non-metallic metal. Because the last time I worked on this guy was probably a month or 2 ago, and he looks pretty okay, but I've clearly forgotten how to do a lot of what his non-metallic metal trim looks like, and so I'm just trying to remember it. It's all good. So how are you doing? What are you up to? I mean, obviously, one of the best parts of this is if I end up not liking how this guy turns out, I can just paint right over him. I'm using fairly thin layers, I suppose. Oh, goodness gracious. I mean, between seeing this guy, seeing some of the new World Eater stuff, I'm really wrangling to play some Warhammer again. It's been a little while. And this Custodes is not going to be ready by or anytime soon. I specifically bought them to practice non-metallic metal, so that when I get some more commission work, I can confidently do some of the cool, more special techniques on their models, including the non-metallic metal, right? So that's all I'm really doing here, is using these guys as a practice template for that. And also, you know, when they're done, they're going to be a really cool Custodes army that is completely non-metallic metal. But that's a whole nother thing. Okay. Now, the one thing that I always struggle with is how much of like the warm undertone, because I know that gold typically has somewhat of an orange hue to it, and I'm never really quite sure how far I want to go with that orange hue. But I suppose that's all part of the process, is figuring that information out, right? Let's see, we're going to use some more of this gold brown. I can't believe this is called gold brown. This reads so much like Imperial Fist Yellow with just a little less orange to it. Yeah, going back to something I was talking about a minute ago, I spent most of the weekend helping a friend prep a new house that they got, that they recently closed on. One of the first things they wanted to do was like paint, but when they got into the master bedroom, they realized that there were some issues with the wall, and it was that, you know, when you put together a wall with drywall and whatnot, you have to tape the joints together so you don't have these big like lines where the drywall is just connecting. So they were like pulsing and bubbling out, almost as if whoever did them just didn't do a very good job putting them together. And so he had to sand them down because he didn't want to have these big veins running through his bedroom walls. So he did that, and I told him I can help you mud them, because I used to work in a remodeling company with my father. And when I got there, he had been using some light spackle, and it just kind of smeared it into the vein that he had sanded down. And to be completely honest, it looked like he had put on a thick coat of just patchwork on it, which was fair, because it's like, if you don't know what to do, then you don't know what to do. And so I ended up having to help him mud that joint out to try and make it as smooth as possible. And I haven't done that in a couple years, so my body hurts. And it's funny, because I've never thought of mudding as something that required a whole lot of physical strain. But since I'm a school teacher now, anything that my body does is like panicking and screaming whenever I do anything physical. So it was definitely not prepared for those shenanigans. How far over did I go with this guy? Actually, wait a minute. That's weird. Oh, okay, is it that his inner? Yeah, okay, I gotcha. So I can definitely expand out on this side a little bit more to match the other side for light reflection. Which is obviously going to be a little different, because it's a different part of his body that is reflecting light a little differently. Which is fine. Still just trying to figure this stuff out. Okay. But yeah, that might have been what kind of messed up my my general sleep pattern again. Was just doing a whole lot more painting and drywall mudding and lifting than I've done in a while. And so my body's probably a little more sore than it needs to be. But beyond that, doing pretty okay. Just doing some painting before I have to go to work, I suppose. Maybe I definitely woke up too early. Usually by now I'm just sitting down to have breakfast. Okay. I don't think I have quite enough light going on here. There's so much dark on this guy. And I feel like I need to bump up the amount of light reflection that's happening on him. But I'm not really sure how to go about it. I don't know what to do. Oh, okay. Yep, I see. Again, looking at the back of his other calf, I can probably go up even more so around here. And just kind of continue building up. And this is the big problem with doing non-metallic metal, is you've got to understand light reflections and where light should go versus where it shouldn't go. And to be honest, I'm not very good at that. But again, that's what I'm here to practice for. Now normally, I stream in the evening. I normally stream around 4:30, 5 o'clock to about 6:30. And that's where most of the activity comes for in this chat. But since I really don't have anything to do in the morning and I would like to paint and get things done, every now and then I'll pop up around now. And this is when I'll go ahead and stream a little bit. I have some people who follow me. They're over in Britain and in Europe, so that way they have better access. They can pop in and see me a little bit more. But this is by far the earliest I've woken up to stream in a while. Okay, that looks a little closer to what I'm looking for. Definitely a bit sloppier than I'd like, and very clearly, yeah, his the yellow on that leg looks very different than everything else. But I suppose it's going to be okay. Yeah, I really do like these custodies. Okay, to get the rest of this, golly, there's so much to this model. So I was watching a Squidmar Minis video a little while ago, and it was like 9 tips to make you a better painter, or beginners should know, or something. And one of my favorite tips on there was actually about non-metallic metal. And his tip was to do it, like, practice on something that's flat with a large surface area, like a Space Marine or something. Because they have large flat surfaces, it'll be easier to kind of learn how light reflects versus how it doesn't. There's not going to be a whole lot of intricate bends in the model that you're going to have to figure out where the light goes and where to place light versus dark elements. And once you master that, then you should move on to something a little bit more difficult. And he showed a bunch of filigree and whatnot, and he showed a bunch of custodies. And all I could think about was my stupid ass starting with Gilliman, and then going straight from Gilliman into a combat patrol of custodies. It's like, well, I definitely chose the hardest way to do this. I completely skipped the bunny slope. And in some ways, it's kind of showing through, because this is all definitely pretty rough. But I suppose that's okay, because my army, I'll do what I want with it. And if I decide I don't like how it looks later, since this is essentially a very elaborate block coat, I can always go back later and fix it, I guess. Like with Gilliman, if I ever decide that I don't like how Gilliman looks, I can just go back and paint him over. I've done it a couple times already, as I've realized, oh, this spot is too dark, or oh, this spot is too light. I guess that's kind of the beauty of this hobby, is that a product is never done, a model is never done until you decide it's done, right? Until you decide you no longer want to go back and paint it anymore. So if you do screw up, or you do get better and you realize, oh, I could have done X, Y, Z, then you can easily go back and do X, Y, Z. And that is pretty nice. Because, I mean, there are a lot of hobbies where it's like, once you're done, you're done. There's no fixing it. You've made your mistakes and you've chosen to do this, and now the model's got to live like that, or now the product's got to live like that. So it is kind of nice knowing that is not the case with the Warhams and the miniature painting. At some point, I'm going to get back to doing D&D miniatures. I've got enough. I've just been really lazy about it. I've mentioned it before, but I bought a whole ton of them off the Kickstarter that Reaper Miniatures did back, like, golly, 3 years ago now? 4 years ago now? I think I started doing the Kickstarter, or I went ahead and contributed to the Kickstarter back in 20 2019. There's the right time, 2019. And it didn't get here obviously until 2020. And I think the Kickstarter closed right as the pandemic started. So I didn't get those models until like the next year. And at that point, the friends I played D&D with pretty regularly, they moved out of state. And so it was like, okay, I guess I have all these minis that I'm not really ever going to use because I now play most of my D&D games digitally. And so it was just like, oh, well, now I've got like 200 minis that I'm not really going to do anything with. And so a grand majority of them have just been kind of sitting in their bags still, waiting for me to paint them. And there is no real reason for that. I probably could go ahead and paint them at any point in time. It's just I fell into Warhammer, and Warhammer's been a whole lot more interesting for me thematically, and so that's what I've wanted to paint. The idea of amassing these huge armies and having them like on the tabletop is just so much more visually impressive to me than doing like a single D&D mini. Though that's starting to shift again because I'm really enjoying the artistry of getting like one mini to look really, really good. And so that's kind of what it is, because I could very easily batch paint these custodians. I've already done that once with a set of 3D printed ones. And they look fine. They get the job done. They look like custodians. They're golden, they're well painted, all that kind of stuff. But it really became an issue of I want to learn how to non-metallic metal. So I've been working on the non-metallic metals of them. Well, working on trying to learn how to do non-metallic metal. At some point, if I continue to practice this, I'll get good enough to be even more critical of how it looks. But I mean, that is a thing. If you're learning how to paint and you're really rough on yourself because you keep seeing other painters online and you're like, man, I'm never going to reach that level, stop it. You will eventually get better, and you will continue to get better. And since you're the one that paints it, you're also going to be the one with the most knowledge, so you're going to be the most critical. Most people are going to look at your paint job and think it's really darn good and really darn impressive. So don't ever feel like you need to continue to compare yourself to some of these greats out there who have been doing it for years and have access to more sophisticated camera equipment than you do. That's been my biggest thing, is like, I want to be good and I want to try and be good enough to paint like some of these guys. And so I see their models on Instagram and on the YouTube and whatnot, and my immediate thought is, my God, I'm never going to reach that level of proficiency. Their blends are so creamy smooth, and their models look so darn good. And I've realized a good amount of it is that it's being manipulated, either through their really good photography and camera lighting, or just through Photoshop. And nothing too drastic, they're not lying, but they're definitely punching up and accentuating different aspects of their paint job digitally that you don't really get to see or get to do unless you've got the right equipment to do so, right? So they're really bringing out the strengths of their paint job in a way that you can't unless you have Photoshop, you know? And that's really the thing. I noticed that when I was starting to take some photographs of a commission that I finished recently, is that I was happy with the commission. It was fine. I just needed to get it to tabletop ready. But it wasn't like the best work I've ever done. And then I looked at it after photographing it, and I realized that a lot of my models look a whole lot better now that they have been photographed than they did when I first finished them and stared at them through a just with the lighting, with camera lighting, or with natural lighting, you know what I mean? So the photography really helps hide a lot of like flaws that you would normally see or point out in your models. So trust me, if you're nervous about your modeling, if you're nervous about your painting, or you're not comfortable with it, Just know that it looks better than you think it does, and that photography is going to make it look even better. Okay? Good photography with good lighting. I'm not talking about any old type of photography. Using your camera phone, you know, on a kitchen table is not going to look that great. So it really is all about finding the right elements in the right spaces. And apparently completely forgetting how to non-metallic metal. But yeah, I'm not gonna have a new job soon with this stuff. I'm not gonna have a new project. A friend is. I have a friend of a friend who is interested in getting into 40K, which I think is really funny, because the reason he's interested in getting into 40K is he's starting to realize that to play Magic the way he wants to play it, he's gonna have to start forking over big money for big cards for incremental improvements, I guess is what he said. And he doesn't really want to do that. And so he's getting into Warhammer. And all I can think of is, bro, you're making the same mistake I'm making. You're doing the thing I did. I got out of Magic because it's too expensive, and now I'm into Warhammer. But I suppose the good news is that now I have a 3D printer. So, to see if he's interested, to gauge his general interest, I can very easily print him some proxies. And we'll see if he enjoys actually miniature painting, and if he enjoys assembling the models, and yada yada yada. And if he does, then cool. He can start buying the ones that he really needs or wants. And know that if he ever decides he doesn't want to play Warhammer anymore, he can sell out for for a steady amount instead of hoping that the market is good. I guess the only thing is he's playing Drukhari. He wants to try Drukhari, so it's like, oh, okay. Let's try that out. Good news is I found some really nice proxies online, so I'm going to print him up some foot soldiers, and if he's enjoying painting them, I'll upgrade to give him some of the nicer stuff that I found. So we're actually going to end up playing one-page rules with this stuff. We're not planning on playing proper 40K, because proper 40K is a slog, at least with how it is now. So hopefully he's able to find some joy in this hobby and some relaxation. And then we can just beat the crap out of each other with our armies. That's the big hope. Let's see. That looks some kind of way. I guess technically I should be going farther back on this side, because it's definitely going to be more exposed to the sunlight. Back all the way back. And add some yellow to that-ish. All the way back. And it's actually providing some of the orange hue that I want. More so the white. There we go. That looks a little better. As I unintentionally wet blend everything. Okay. Go ahead and knock this down a little more. Pretty much the same reason. Maybe at some point, if I get enough of a following on here, I can start opening up like a fundraiser of some kind to get a better camera. Right now, I've been using my cell phone, which has a decent camera, don't get me wrong, but because obviously the lens is incredibly narrow, it's got to simulate a lot of the aperture and the focus. And so that means that depending on what I'm doing, I'm either going to have an incredibly narrow depth of field or shallow depth of field, which sucks, because if I do something like this, it's immediately out of focus. Or, when I go really close up like I'm going now, you're going to have to suffer through it constantly trying to snap focus into whatever I'm doing, which, when I've replayed some of my videos, is nauseating. So I've tried to be better about holding it in place, but I'm also nearsighted with astigmatism. So I can't wear my glasses, and that means when I glance over at my feed, everything looks blurry. But that's okay. that'll be something I'll get fixed eventually. But then again, getting a new camera is going to be ridiculously expensive. Currently I have an old Pentax that I've had for close to, golly, how long have I had that thing? 8 years? And for the longest time, it's just been like, oh, this camera is going to be great. This body's going to serve me for forever. And well, technically, yes, I could do that. The body is still very good for what it needs to do, which is take photos and record video. It doesn't have an HDMI cable, so I can't stream anything off of it, which sucks because the newest Pentax that I'd want to get is like $900, and the only reason why I'd want to get the new one over like the model prior is that Pentax can no longer find a reliable supply chain distributor for some of the parts in the previous model. So they've released this new one as a marginal upgrade with some of the new parts and components so that they can continue servicing it. And I would like to stick with Pentax because they're one of the only companies that have decided they're not going to go mirrorless. And not that there's anything wrong with mirrorless cameras. Mirrorless cameras are really cool, but I don't want to have to buy a whole new suite of lenses that are potentially going to be obsolete in 10 years when Pentax has been using the K-mount system for decades, and they've basically doubled down and said, yeah, we're not moving away from K-mount. Your camera, we're going to stick with DSLRs, and your camera lenses are going to be compatible with all of them. Whoops. So it's just like, I kind of don't want to move away from that. I've spent hundreds of dollars on lenses. And if I were to want to get them back, I would have to spend $100 more. I suppose since I would only be using that, since everything else about the camera is fine, I could theoretically continue using the Pentax for, you know, going out and taking photos, and use the, if I were to buy another camera, specifically use that camera for streaming. And it would be cheaper, I guess, to just buy the a streaming style quote-unquote camera and just have that one stock lens, because I can continue using the Pentax for photography and whatnot, I suppose. So maybe I could find a Nikon for like half the price of Pentax. So this definitely looks like a thing. Not quite sure how I feel about this. I mean, it definitely looks like an attempt at non-metallic metal. Whether it's a good one or not, I don't know. I mean, the camera's not focusing hard enough to tell. Well, I'm not going to be too mad at it. What I am going to be mad at is how frustrating it is to do an underlay. I am very specifically working on the Custodes models that I'm least fond of right now, because I have a couple that I really like, and those are the ones I want to do really well on, so I'm saving them for last with this non-metallic metal shenanigans. So hopefully by the time I get to them, I'll have enough skill to really make them look good. Though based on the current pattern, what'll probably happen is I'll have forgotten everything I've learned by the time I get to them, and it'll be like starting fresh again, which is definitely going to suck. Hey, it's 7 o'clock. This is about the time I would have got down here to start streaming. Okay. What do I need to do with this guy? Probably hit this a little harder so that he has some actual light reflection happening. It looks like I gave up on it. About midway through. Okay. Now I guess I gotta do this next shin guard, which is in an even more complicated position for me to have to hit. And I suppose I could do the leather on his leather. I forget what these are called. They have a specific name. There's a very specific name for the Roman style leather tassels that they have to protect their groinal area, which might be one of my favorite sentences ever. But for the life of me, I do not remember what it is. And I suppose his little studs at the end to weigh it down are going to be gold as well. Because everything on this custard man is gold. So we're just going to go ahead and hit it very loosely with the same color combinations to make it some degree of gold, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it'll read. I'll just keep drifting to the left side of the camera. What else? I guess I gotta start on the next part with as much chagrin as I have. I suppose the biggest good news for me, though, is that this is going to be a very easy week. All my students are taking some kind of standardized test, which is, you know, the funnest thing in the world, and I love giving that to them. But it also means that I have very little work on my end I need to do. So I, at the very least, don't have to think that hard or prep a whole lot for work this week. I will say, on another note, another more Warhammer related note, I have been reading Master of Mankind, listening to Master of Mankind. I don't actually sit down and read as much anymore. Though with how deeply invested I am in the Horus Heresy, I feel like I should start doing that again. I'm listening to the Master of Mankind, and a couple of things. First of all, Aaron Dembski-Bowden is a great writer, but secondly, it just keeps reiterating to me how darn lucky the Black Library is to have Jonathan Keeble, because Jonathan Keeble elevates every book that he reads. He narrates. I guess I don't need to say how lucky they are, because they're probably really aware. That's why they keep bringing him back and paying him money to read their books aloud. But he has done an absolutely fantastic bang-up job of making me care about characters I might have otherwise not cared about, and of making the stories incredibly engaging and feel really big and grandiose. I remembered when I was growing up, especially in college, hearing about how the Warhammer lore is fantastic and it's really deep and, you know, this, that, and the other. But they've done a really good job of humanizing characters that basically read as terrible pastiches of fascism. And The Master of Mankind is one of the only books I know of that has the Emperor as a pivotal central character, as opposed to someone who's just kind of talked about. And that's really important to the plot. And so it's kind of neat seeing him have to interact with people, mainly custodies. But it's also really neat seeing the Battle of the Webway and the aftermath of Magnus's folly, because he did a lot of things wrong. But again, even that meme is great, because it's essentially a take on, you know, Greek tragedy and the effects of hubris. And so I've enjoyed quite thoroughly most of the Horus Heresy. There have been a couple of stinkers that I really don't like. But Master of Mankind has been fantastic. I just got to a part, I'm sorry if this is spoilers for anyone, but the Master of Mankind is like a 4 or 5 year old book at this point. So I recommend you read it. But they had a Warlord class Titan defending a bridge while in the Webway, which is essentially a ton of Eldar ruins because, you know, the Eldar failed and, you know, birthed Slaanesh. And that meant they abandoned a lot of their projects because 99% of them were dead. But one of those projects was the Webway, which the Emperor kind of picked up once he realized it was a safe conduit of travel for his ships, for his people, as opposed to literally warping through hell and hoping everything came out okay. But Magnus accidentally cracked open the Webway and allowed hordes and hordes and hordes and hordes of demons to go through, right? And so the Emperor of Mankind is now stuck to the Golden Throne, trying to keep the Webway project in some way, shape, or form manageable and, you know, intact. And he's got the Sisters of Silence, remnants of the Mechanicum that fled from Mars, and the Custodians in the webway, frantically trying to keep the thing upright, held until something. I think what they're waiting for is for Horus to die, because they know that Horus is fighting this war, and he's causing all sorts of problems, and the Emperor can't get off his throne to thrash him, so he is waiting for the rest of his sons, the other Primarchs, to do something about Horus, and once that stabilizes, hopefully that will cause chaos, the forces of chaos, to give up and realize that they're losing and just generally retreat back into the warp. And I guess that's kind of where he's going with it. But regardless, one thing that ended up happening is they're very clearly losing, right? Like, they're not supposed to be able to hold the webway because it is just endless teeming hordes of psychic evil trying to push its way through. And so they're slowly losing ground. And in the part where I'm at, they've just lost the Impossible City, which was an Eldar webway city, yada yada yada. And one thing that was there was a warlord, I think a warlord class or an emperor class type. I do not recall. I think a warlord class type. And they realized that there was no way that that thing was going to be able to retreat because it was too damn big. They actually brought it in caravan parts and assembled it in the webway, right? And so we kind of got to see its last stand. And there was a great drawn-out battle between it and a Warhound class Titan, which it beat, but took heavy damage. And then a Chaos Corrupted Warlord class Titan stepped in to be like, hey, I'm going to finish you off. I'm going to win this. And it has this really great last fight against it. It basically ruins the entire thing in the process. And it just wants to be remembered, right? It knows it's not going to live. The crew knows they're going to die. The Princeps who's in control of it knows that I think she's going to die. I forget. But they know that this is it. And so she's sending out like this keening wail to try and let anyone know that they succeeded. They held the bridge. They stopped the onslaught of other Titans, and allowed the rest of their people to have a safe retreat. And as they're doing this, one of the Reaver class Titans that fled, came back and found them. And so their immediate response is, oh, thank goodness, you've made it back. Please help, because they're dying. And they're like, help me get my crew out. Help me survive this. And the Reaver class is just kind of standing there quietly watching them. And they're like, how dare you be so incredibly passive to the amazing thing I've just accomplished. And then we go over to the Reaver class cockpit, where we find out that most of the pilots are dead. They've all been shot and killed, and the person that is in charge, the Princeps, has been taken over by a Chaos Demon, and it's trying to figure out how to work the damn thing, because it only has the fading memories of the Princeps as it's devouring the thing's soul from the inside, and it just kind of raises its guns up, says, bellows the line, honor kill, which is how Titans announce that they've successfully felled an enemy combatant, and then blows the wounded Warlord Titan to smithereens, and watches it fall off the bridge. And it's just like, that fucking sucks. Which is what's great about the 40k books, is they manage to make you care about incredibly ridiculous, contrived things. Like, a Warlord class Titan is stupid. Anyone who says otherwise is either wrong or is just ironically enjoying the schlock that is 40, or not ironically, but is just enjoying the schlock that 40k gives. But Warlord class Titans are incredibly dumb. They're huge, they're pondering, they're basically walking cities of artillery, and that makes them awesome, but I would never expect a book to be able to make you really deeply invested in one of them, you know what I mean? but a combination of Aaron Dembski-Bowden's writing and Jonathan Keeble's stellar vocal performance really makes you invested in that thing's story. And of course, because I'm only kind of half listening to these stories as I'm doing other things, whether it's driving to work or getting ready for the day, or like this morning, eating breakfast and taking care of my pets, I'm only half listening. And so it took me a minute to realize that that was the Warlord Titan that some of the other characters saw being carted into the webway in pieces when they first decided to reinforce the webway. Because earlier in the book, one of the characters goes to the Fabricator General of Mars, which is like their grand leader, and explains to them, we need more munitions, we need more manpower, because otherwise the webway is going to fall. And as they're all caravanning in, one of the other characters notices that there are these huge pieces of machinery that are being like flown and like wheeled in, and they realize, oh, it's a Warlord Titan. Okay, they're gonna have to put it together in there, but what kind of effect is it gonna have on the actual machine spirit? And so just well-placed seeds that obviously come to bear fruit later in the stories, right? And I'm not even sure I'd call it that, because it wasn't exactly a seed. It was just like, here's what's gonna happen. Very explicitly laid out. And then my slow brain was just like, oh yeah, that was a thing that was mentioned earlier. I teach English class. There are students that rely on my knowledge. But that's okay. Like I said, it was a good story. I was really sad at the end of it, like you're supposed to be, because in the grim darkness of the far-flung future, there is only war, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Once again, I really think I probably should have gone a little more orange with this, but I'm going to try and see how it looked without the orange. And I'm not sure I like the lack of warmth that's coming out of like the legs. They have this kind of very depleted, I guess, desaturated. Oh, that's way too thick. Desaturated look that I'm not really rocking right now. I'm not vibing with it. So I might very clearly have to go back and completely redo the legs I'm working on, which is fine. I'm not going to be upset over the fact that an experiment failed, right? All it means is that I get to have the joy of relearning it and getting better at it. What the heck is that? Oh, that's one of his crotch danglies. Which is like the worst sentence I could possibly say. I'm watching this show with my wife, Korea Number One. If you haven't seen it and you enjoy goofy reality TV, I suggest you do. It's about like an actor, a comedian, and an athlete going to different cultural spots of Korea that are important to like their traditional culture, and trying to learn the craft of whatever the master of that area does. And I don't want to say I use the term master loosely, because every one of them are clearly incredibly experienced in their jobs, right? It's something they've chosen to do as a career for the rest of their lives, or it's been passed down like from the family. Like there's one where they're making traditional Korean like fabric, right? And the lady that is the head of the thing that is teaching them, she's been there since she was like 4 years old. So she's in her 70s or something when the show starts, or when that episode starts. So she's been doing this her entire life, right? She's the kind of classical craftsman you think of in the old stories. And they did one where they went out to I don't even know what they're called. It's like a delta in South Korea's rivers that lead out into, I guess, the ocean. And they go out there when there's low tide, and they grab octopuses, and they grab crabs and fish and whatever else they need to grab, as part of the catch. And so they did that, and when they get the octopuses, first they've got to kind of shovel out wherever they're hiding, and then they've got to like grab them out by hand and then deposit them in these wicker baskets that they're wearing. And obviously these things are still very much alive. Sorry about the focus issues. And so when they get put in these baskets, since they're just like this porous wicker, they apparently want to leave because they don't want to be stuck in a wicker basket. And so they start trying to escape through the bottom because that's the only part they can really think to get out of. And so as these comedians and actors and athletes are walking around, suddenly they've got these dangly bits in between their legs as the octopus is just like, I don't want to be here anymore, I'm gonna get out. And I just thought that was very funny. That episode made my wife a little upset. Like, she understands circle of life, the need of, you know, eating what you catch and not wasting it and whatnot. But they were very clear with how they prepared the octopus when they brought it back to them for lunch after they had finished working. And long story short, while they were still alive, they just chopped them up and threw them in like a hot pot. And that's a bit aggressive for like most American tastes, because, you know, as Westerners, we're pretty, well, not Westerners, I don't want to overly exaggerate, but as non-rural, non-agricultural Westerners, Americans, we're pretty far removed from our food sources. And so that leads to a very clear, like, distinction between what we consider to be gruesome and not, because, like, you know, we eat meat, we eat all sorts of things like that, but we don't usually see where it comes from. Like, we're aware that pigs have to be slaughtered, chickens have to be slaughtered for the food to reach our tables, but we don't think about it, right? And so here we are watching it, and you just start seeing the lady go across the tentacles and start hacking away at them. And I can just hear my wife whimpering over in the corner. Well, not whimpering, that would be a little demeaning. No, she's just like kind of groaning in disapproval, like, ugh. And I feel bad because I feel the exact same way. And it's made worse by the fact that you can still see the tentacles squirming in the hot oil. And it's just like, they're suffering. It's like, no shit, they're suffering. They still have, I think, I don't know if this is true. I forget whether or not this is true, but don't octopuses, octopi, octopodes, don't they have extra brains, extra nervous systems in each of their tentacles? Because regardless of if that's the case or not, they're still very clearly alive. So watching them kind of squirm and suffer was definitely a little more upsetting than I think either of us were ready for. And we finished watching it. Like, we didn't stop, we didn't turn it off and protest or anything like that. Because again, circle of life and farm to table, and this is how food is made. But it definitely made us squirm a bit, which I guess was fine. Us Americans need to get rid of, or need to get over our privilege anyway. But yeah, I just thought that was very funny because dangly bits. Okay, yeah, I probably could go over a little more with that, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and reach over on this side, because especially since, as I mentioned before, he's got so much of his leg more exposed on this side than on the other, that it would make a lot more sense for him to have greater coverage, greater reflective coverage right here than how I originally did it. So that's what I'm going to work on. I gotta admit, I'm a little tickled that the one phrase, the one message to me this morning has been an incredibly enthusiastic, "Hey, what's up, G?" And then nothing else, because I'm pretty sure I missed it before he decided, yeah, this stream ain't for me, and then left. Which is fine. It's just me painting and rambling incoherently, so I can definitely understand why people would be like, yeah, no, that I don't want to spend my morning, afternoon, whatever, listening to this guy talk. But I just find that very amusing. Hopefully, at some point, I'll get to a point where I can get a few more regulars who are interested in just kind of chilling. I mean, even though this is technically a Warhammer stream, It's basically just a stream of me painting, because I would already be down here painting, and it's like, why not talk to people while you're doing it? Why not open up your stream so people can watch you? And the more I think about it, the more I realize just how brazen and, I guess, confident you'd have to be to do that, because not everyone can host a room, you know what I mean? Not everyone has the comfort level of being like, hey, I wanna host a room, I wanna talk to people, and try and entertain them while also doing this other thing. Which makes sense, and I guess between Doig and Swift being incredibly encouraging, and watching a Super Eye Patch Wolf video where he was all like, don't do it for clout, do it because you want to, do it because you enjoy it, and even if it fails, you at least can say you did it. You had the bravery, you had the drive to be like, hey, I want to do this thing, and now you've had that experience. And that really spoke to me, I guess, because I was, you know, in some kind of mood, but that's the main reason why I'm on here doing this. That's way too bright. Oh my goodness. Save that bright for the edge highlight. Okay. Now I suppose, if I really think about it, if I run my two brain cells together, it would make sense for it to be that kind of bright, because it's reflecting light. There is no real filter behind it. So if it's getting hit with direct sunlight, it would probably be really stinking bright, wouldn't it? Okay. We can clarify that out. Something else that has been incredibly lovely is that we've been having, there's some road work happening outside our house. There's been an issue with like water drainage off of storms and the like, and so after fielding some complaints from the neighborhood, I suppose the city council decided, yeah, let's go ahead and put in some storm drains and some curbs, some better curbs in your development, because it clearly needs it based on the amount of, you know, standing water you guys end up with at the end of every storm. And so last summer, they started cordoning off the area, being like, hey, we're going to start doing some construction in this area, so be aware of that. And I was like, okay, cool, can't wait for that to happen. They're probably going to close off our roads during the summer. And it's like, well, let's wait until October, because that's what they did. It took them until October to get started. And so now they basically closed off the road so that the heavy machinery can do its job. And it's like, cool, fine, great, I'm okay with that. But one of the big problems we also complained about, one of the bigger problems we complained about, was that our street was being used as a thoroughfare for drunks to get home in the evening on the weekends. And they put up like a speedometer or a recorder to record people who might have been speeding. And of course, when people see one of those, they slow down. I know, because I'm one of them, right? And they were like, oh yeah, well, there's no problem, because we tried to pick it up on the speedometer, and we only had like 2 people who decided to brazenly speed through. Like, well, no shit, they know you're watching them now. And once they got rid of all that equipment, it went right back to people just zooming their way through. Which, I know, I sound like an old man yelling at clouds, right? Because at this point I pretty much am. But ever since they started doing construction and blocked off the area, it's been awfully quiet in my neighborhood. And I think probably my favorite part of that is watching the dipsticks who see people go through there because they live here. And they're like, oh, well, I guess they can go through, it'll be fine. And so they weave around the one sign, and then they get out to where there's an excavator blocking off the other side of the road. And then they pause there and wait for like 15 minutes of like, someone's gonna come out and move it. And very clearly the road crew has left for the day. So then they slowly back up and go back the other way. And it's like, you dummies. You goobers. That's kind of been my fun experience with watching the road the new sidewalks being put in. Or the new curbs, not even sidewalks. Okay. I think right now I've kind of given up hope on making parts of this look pretty, so I'm just going through and adding some shine. Because it is also almost time for me to get going. And again, I want to emphasize how much this this specific brush is helping me do some of this work, because it's got this really long body, and that's really helpful for doing edge highlights. If you've never learned how to do edge highlights, which I don't want to presume, what you want to do to get a good edge highlight really is take the brush and get it as flat as possible, so that only a very narrow profile of it strikes against an individual surface. It is all about angles. And if you do it right, stuff looks pretty. If you do it wrong, you just end up smudging it everywhere, which obviously is not pretty. Okay, he's not done. He's closer to done. I don't know if I like where he is in terms of close to done. His legs definitely are a completely different color from his upper body. But, you know, that's what this is for. Experimenting, judging, viewing, going back and changing. So, can't be too mad at it. It gave me an excuse to log back in and ramble incoherently at you guys about my life. And about how things are going. Speaking of how things are going, the fact that Henry Cavill is now helping produce a TV series for Warhams. I know there are a lot of people that are upset that it's on Amazon, and they're worried that they're going to ruin the lore. And all I can think of is how just horrifically inconsistent the lore has been anyway. There's like 8 different accounts of how Prospero happened, and there used to be female space marines, and you know, Lehman Russ used to just be a really good general. And just, you know, whatever, man. There's a story that has been declared non-canon about Inquisitor Draco doinking an assassin that turned into a gene stealer. So, I'm not overly worried about that. They're going to get a lot of things wrong. They're going to get some things wrong. Maybe Cavill is going to, you know, put whoever disagrees with him in a headlock. I don't know. But the fact that Warhammer has become popular enough that the Bezos machine has decided we need to milk this is very impressive to me. Because I just remember, seeing where the hobby was 15 years ago and only knowing about it through Dawn of War and thinking, wow, this is a fairly aggressive and not particularly good StarCraft ripoff. I was wrong, the game is fantastic. But seeing that in like Space Marine and knowing that those were the only 2 good pieces of media at the time, and now, I don't know, not quite 15 years later, seeing animations being done for it, you know, quality being debated, but animations being done for it, and fan animations, and then games like the new ones that have come out, like Darktide and the like, and then seeing, you know, what we've got now. We went from Ultramarine to Astartes, and oh my goodness, and Angels of Death, and, you know, the games we've got, Darktide and Mechanicus and Chaos Gate Demon Hunters and all that fantastic stuff. So I choose to remain optimistic that even in a failed attempt, the fact that it's gaining this kind of recognition is going to end well for the series, because more eyes on the product means more minds on the product, right? And so even if this specific creation fails, someone else is going to pick up the mantle that becomes interested in the series, despite whatever Amazon does to it, and then they're going to make it better, right? Not every first iteration is the best iteration. That's all I gotta say. And I got a friend who refuses to have anything to do with Warhammer Plus because Warhammer Plus was such an utter failure in a lot of ways in delivering on its promises, which I get. I'm subscribed to Warhammer Plus because I wanted the assassin, but it's been very disappointing, all things considered. And it's like, maybe they'll learn not to get into the streaming services when their audience is so limited. And we were both a little grousy about that, and then I was like, well, maybe this Amazon deal is an example of them learning from their mistakes. And he kind of nodded, because, yeah, maybe that's the case. And if this bombs, maybe they'll learn from those mistakes and do a better job next time. Who knows? Either way, if you were here watching, I appreciate it. If you're watching this on a stream later, first of all, I can't believe you made it an hour in, because it is what it is. But thank you for being here. I hope you have a good rest of the day. I don't know if I'll be on later on this evening, because I think I'm going to go back to Soft Servo's new house and help him a little more. But beyond that, guys, have a good one. I will see you later. And, bye-bye.